Hello, and welcome to the second video in the Gateway Process series. Today, we will be focusing on hypnosis and how it's relevant and what is actually in the report that was declassified in 2003 by the CIA. If you have not met me yet, my name is Danny Falesnik, and I am a licensed professional counselor and psychic medium. I aim to educate people on the intersectionality of mental health and spiritual well-being. As always, this video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. While I am a mental health practitioner, I am not able to adequately evaluate, diagnose, or provide treatment through a video. Therefore, take this as entertainment, not medical advice. Not medical advice. So let's get into it. I'm going to provide you with some education on the brain, followed by a little peek about what's in the report, which can be found under my resources on my website. The link for that is in my bio. Onward. Hypnosis is all about changing how your brain works and getting your mind to really focus, which helps you relax and be more open to suggestions, providing a deeper access to your subconscious mind. It calms you down, and it calms that part of the brain that does all the critical thinking, which is your consciousness, thus making it easier for you to use your imagination. This ties into the Gateway Project, which aimed to use different states of consciousness to help people see reality in a new way, mainly through meditation, hemispheric synchronization, or hemisync, which essentially is the act of getting both sides of your brain to work together, and other methods to dive deeper into consciousness. When somebody gets hypnotized or puts themselves into a hypnotic state, their brain waves usually change from the busy beta waves that we have when we're awake, anywhere from 30 hertz down to 13, or slower ones like alpha, which is 8 to 12, or even theta, which is anywhere from 4 to 7 hertz. So you can think of it as really fast waves, being us awake, overthinking, being panicked, down to that moment right before you fall asleep, and you can start kind of conducting your own dreams. So alpha waves help you physically relax and tune out what's going on around you and be more open to your own thoughts and mental images, whereas theta waves are an even deeper state associated with relaxation, light sleep, and a trance-like state where your mind is super duper open to suggestions and creativity. If you've experienced lucid dreaming, that's theta state. So while somebody is in hypnosis, these slower brain waves interact with changes in how the brain networks function. Less activity in the default mode network means a lot of really good things for us. So let's quick talk about what is default mode network. It plays several crucial roles in processing your thoughts, your emotions, and our sense of ourself or our identity. Default mode network is responsible for self-referential thinking, or how we think about ourselves, autobiographical memory and reflection, helping us recall and reflect on a personal memory, and building some kind of narrative which gives us a sense of who we are, a coherent story about our lives. Simulation of future scenarios come out of default mode network by being able to imagine our potential future selves, our social cognition and empathy, which helps us understand the thoughts and perspectives of others. Sometimes referred to as theory of mind. Daydreaming is part of the default mode network. Without this, we would not have the ability to allow our minds to wander and think creatively. While yes, it can be very distracting to get lost in thought, it's also crucial for creative expression and problem solving. But when somebody is hypnotized, this network tends to quiet down a little bit, which means they're less caught up in their own thoughts, like doubting or questioning yourself. This helps them really focus on the hypnotic suggestions without being distracted. So more cognition and connection between different brain areas is really important when it comes to hypnosis. Hypnosis can boost the connections between the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which helps with decision making, and I'll try to put it right here, I guess. We'll see. And then it also is connecting that with the insula, which is how to sense and feel our emotions. The stronger our connection is between our dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex, sorry, wow, brain is like, and our insula is what allows our brain to actually accept suggestions by mixing this emotional and sensory information with what we're consciously thinking about. So if you've ever been in therapy and a therapist is like, let's meditate, then you're like, I am super duper lost. It's because you have not allowed or gotten into that lower theta state of being where your mind tends to be more passive and spongy. Okay. And lastly, the big thing with hypnosis that is really important to understand is that there's less activity in the anterior cingulate cortex, which the ACC is responsible for pattern recognition, specifically spotting mistakes and dealing with mixed up thoughts, urges, or any other intrusive thought patterns that just pop into our minds when we really sometimes don't want or need them to. When somebody is hypnotized, this area calms down, helping them feel less inner tug of war or resistance to the suggestions that are being given during a hypnotic episode, which then makes it simpler or easier to accept and take in what the hypnosis is suggesting. Pictured here is the actual gateway process report. Under hypnosis, when I tell you guys there's so much to pick apart here, this is me breaking down this singular paragraph. Okay. So let's start here. Hypnosis is basically a technique which permits acquisition of direct access to the sensory motor cortex and pleasure centers and lower cerebral emotional portions and associated pleasure centers of the right side of the human brain following successful disengagement of the stimulus screening function of the left hemisphere of the brain. What does that mean? It means it's allowing ourselves to really kind of dip our toe into being able to create a profoundly rewarding experience within our reality. Okay. So this is a disengagement from overthinking. It's a disengagement from our self belief, our self narrative, and it's a re engagement of that process of creativity and reconnecting with our childlike self. So if we think about this from a inner child work perspective or even a shadow work perspective, hypnosis can be profoundly helpful. We see this coming up through quantum healing, within Reiki sessions, and a lot of other formats. So onward, if the left hemisphere can be distracted either through boredom, which those of us who get bored enough will know this to be true, or through reduction to a soporific semi-sleep state, external stimuli to include hypnotic suggestions are allowed to pass unchallenged into the right hemisphere where they are accepted and acted upon directly. What this means is once we can turn off the front and kind of let it hum a little bit, let it wander, let it get bored, we can then connect these suggestions with our more emotional place of being, which we can then rewire our brains to function differently. He speaks of the homunculus, which corresponds to the points in the body. Exhibit 1, next page. I'm going to scroll down there real quick. I highlighted some things. So we're looking at these pleasure centers are back here, and hopefully I can figure out how to side by side our little pieces. And then the stimulus loop within our gray matter. This is our, like that prefrontal cortex part, right? So here it says polarization of gray matter causes progression of symptoms. So as we take a stimulus and it circles around and around and around, I'm like, ooh, there. Okay. Like in a cycle, because those little arrows might be hard to see. If we can change the way we're actually cognitively thinking about things, we can actually start kind of running past these pleasure centers here. And we can rewire certain thoughts. So this could be like if you hate the sound of your voice and have never started a podcast because you sound cringe every time you listen to yourself, it's because the belief system up here hits the different pleasure centers, which maybe historically are wired to be like cringe, right? And through the state of hypnosis, we're then able to say, that sounds really good. That sounds great. And let down that fear and anxiety. It's about reshifting the thought. Okay. So, what does this look like in the report? Actually, okay. So, jumping back into this, consequently, the induction of the suggestion that the left leg is numb, if it reaches the right hemisphere unchallenged, so more of the emotional cognitive centers, uh, is unchallenged and is referred to the appropriate area of the sensory cortex, will result in an electrical reaction being generated that will induce the feeling of numbness. So if you've ever seen somebody under hypnosis act like a chicken, they believe this is normal. Let's do it. Let's act like a chicken. They are fully aware. They're allowing that state of being or that experience happen. And then when they kind of come back after the hypnosis has ended, it turns into this situation of, yeah, I kind of remember that, or really wasn't thinking about myself because that default mode network had gone offline. So we then had absorbed that long enough. People who practice hypnosis, if they're an ethical practitioner, will not allow that person to stay in a state where they permanently believe they're a chicken. But there are other situations or factors where maybe somebody wants to quit smoking. And under hypnosis, people can actually forget that they smoke and have lost that emotional response to wanting to smoke or use tobacco or nicotine. So we're looking at how when we're under these suggestive states, the hypnotic subject that has enjoyed this enhanced concentration or power of memory would be responded to within the right hemisphere. So if you've ever been in therapy and a therapist has said like, hey, let's try this, and you've laid there going, what's going, like, nope, that didn't work. A lot of it is that fear of letting go of your default mode network, of like holding on to that so tightly, oh, that you cannot set down the parts that need to be connected, if that makes sense. Anyway, so back to the gateway process. As laid out in 1983 by Wayne McDonnell in his assessment of the process, it is all about tapping into different levels of consciousness to explore realities beyond what we can normally sense. Hypnosis is foundationally critical in terms of helping your mind hit a state that's more receptive, less critical, and better at visualizing and diving into these kind of really cool abstract experiences. Just what these trainees were attempting to experience. So how is this showing up in the gateway assessment? One, better focus and openness. Hypnosis helps shift your brain away from its usual skepticism and everyday thinking into a more creative and open-minded space. It's a really good example of how techniques like semi-hink and the gateway training help you get into that exploratory mindset. The second is syncing your brain waves. So hemi-sync technique in the process is about getting your brain's two sides to work together, often producing the alpha and theta wave brainwave patterns that you see within hypnosis. This synchronization can really boost communication between the two sides of your brain, which ultimately leads to a more complete experience of consciousness and maybe even helping you access higher levels of awareness. The third is self-criticism. That goes down. Hypnosis can dial down those parts of your brain that usually judge and critique your default mode network so that you can break free from the everyday perceptions that keep you stuck. The gateway process's goal is to do something similar, helping people step outside of their usual thought patterns and enjoy an expanded consciousness or astral experiences without the usual nagging skepticism. Like, am I doing this right? So I have a few practical tips if you're curious about how to start tapping into this hypnotic or trance state. So I have a few exercises to kind of help you start practicing. The first is guided visualization. So there are many, many resources online. I'm happy to put one together. I'm happy to lead one. If you're interested, say, yo, I'll sign up, or head to my site, fill out a contact form. But essentially, it's this. Picture a relaxing scene, a peaceful beach, a wooded meadow, right? That doesn't make sense, but anywhere that brings you that sense of pure beauty and joy and relaxation. You're paying attention to the very intricate details in there, getting fully immersed and quiet the mental noise. Exercises like these can really help encourage those theta brain waves, making you more open to inner images and suggestions. So allowing those pictures to just kind of pop through. So self-hypnosis for focus. You start by taking some deep breaths, like 5 of those will do, and imagining all of your tension just fading away with every exhale. As you get more relaxed, silently say to yourself, with each breath, I'm becoming more focused, relaxed, and open to new experiences. That's a great way to kind of invite even just different energetic levels to the experience. Uh, so setting the stage for these deeper states of consciousness kind of helps prepare individuals, I should say, for the gateway hemisync exercises. And then the last one, mindfulness of letting go. Hypnosis is all about releasing your usual grip on reality. I'm this, I'm that, this is that, this is this, right? Try a meditation where you're focusing on just letting go instead of concentrating on your breath or a particular thought. Notice any thoughts or resistance without getting wrapped up in them, letting yourself just kind of float in a moment. Regularly practicing hypnosis eventually will help you on the next steps to using the gateway process for yourself. Your goal is going to be focused on entering deeper states of connection, deeper states of focus, deeper states of relaxation and openness, which are all key for exploring the more subtle and creative sides of consciousness. By understanding how hypnosis works in the brain, we can better use gateway experiences to expand our awareness and explore consciousness. If you're interested in learning more, feel free to contact me via my website or post a comment in the video below, or go learn on your own. Go learn some stuff. But anyways, I'm always here, happy to help. I hope this was helpful. Take care. Bye.